What's up? I am David Long. So, you ever look back on some of your old work and think, ooh, I'm doing so much better than that now? Well, that's good, right? Okay, well, I'm having something like that. I was telling someone to check out one of my older videos that I made about misconceptions around some of the freshman uses of spiral dynamics, where people were kind of doing things like telling people that, oh, you're green, or you're orange, or you're this, instead of this idea is orange or this idea is green, kind of a thing. So my friend John asked me a question, and I took it as an opportunity to deal with this issue to some extent and to talk about a more nuanced, more fluid understanding of spiral dynamics and the way that it relates to our actual life. So here, 6 years later, I am offering you the newly edited and updated, streamlined version of this video. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, what's up? How are you doing? This is David. I am coming to you today to talk about some spiral dynamics concepts and some misconceptions, or to clear up some of the ideas around this whole concept for you. I was talking to my friend John a couple days ago about integral art, and I shared with him a Ken Wilber video, and this is what it said.
I give an example just sort of as a thought experiment. Let's say that we had a Zen master, and just for the sake of argument, let's say that this person's consciousness was integral. And suppose that Zen master draws, as often happens, a single bamboo shoot. Now, is that integral art? And so what we decided is that integral art is any artifact produced by an integral consciousness. Now, that you have to have integral consciousness at the moment. So just the fact that you're integrally conscious 2 or 3 times a week doesn't mean that if you hit an off day that it's going to be integral art.
And then what my friend asked me was, he said, how can you not be integrally conscious all the time? If you are integral, how come you're not always integral? I think this is where a lot of the misconceptions are, because a lot of people think spiral dynamics, and they start to learn about the stages of cognitive development, and they see it as this kind of static, different levels. There's definitely a lot to be explained here. We normally keep the different stages and sort of with dotted outlines. And it's not so much that people are in those stages, but that ideas are in those stages. And then humans move up through these different levels of drives and ideas, and bigger ideas rest upon smaller ideas and are built out of smaller ideas. And bigger drives to do bigger, better things are born out of being able to do smaller things. Like, think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Self-actualization is at the top, but at the bottom is survival. How could you not be of an integral consciousness all the time? Well, let's say the shit hits the fan tomorrow and like a massive solar flare knocks out all electronics all over the world or something like that, and people get sent into some kind of a shit freak-out storm of killing and stealing and all this kind of stuff. I might be of an integral awareness, but at that moment, I'm a survivalist, and I need to be able to get in touch with that quick, and those are going to be my values at the moment. You know what I mean? Because it's nice to want to integrate everything, but those are high-minded values that rest upon all of these other things being in place. Knock those away, and you're back down here. There's another really good saying that says, you think you're enlightened, go visit your family for Thanksgiving. I think that's another really good one, because I know for me personally that as soon as I get around my family, my mom, my sister, those kinds of people, it's hard for me to remember I am God incarnate, manifest the universe looking back at itself. Especially when your mom is up in your face talking to you as if you're this object, this character in her mythology, and it forces you to respond in that kind of a way. I mean, that's part of life. We all play our parts, and it's good to be able to be a skillful actor in all those worlds. And to an extent, that's what being integral is really about, I think, is about trying to go down and deal with your shadow elements and these different levels of your experience to be able to kind of clear out those channels so that way the energy can flow freely. Another really good way of looking at spiral dynamics is that it's a lot like chakras, like a modern interpretation of the metaphorical understanding of chakras. So the bottom 3 chakras are animal chakras, and they have to do with fuck it, kill it, eat it, basically. It's survival, sex, power. Those are the bottom 3, basically, if I'm being, short and brief with it. The level of the heart is the 4th chakra, and then the next chakra has to do with being able to speak truth and duality. Then, the 3rd eye has to do with being able to see more perspective and to understand more people. And it's at that point at which we can also read and create our own mythology and sacred scriptures and things like this, because we really understand it, and that leads out of the body into something bigger. Another important aspect to this whole thing is that, like I said, these are like levels of ideas. So it's a spectrum of consciousness, which was the name of Ken Wilber's first book. And the idea is that we transcend and include all of these levels as we grow up. So it's more like we open ourselves to higher and higher potentials. But when I wake up in the morning, I'm groggy, I'm like, You know, that's not enlightened David. Get me up for a while, get some food in me, maybe, you know, get some of those sexual energies expelled or something, or even channeled into something higher. Start to maybe meditate and rise that kundalini energy up the spine. So every day as you get used to sort of raising your consciousness up to this normal altitude at which you've been able to develop, you start to develop these particular kind of patterns, not only habits in terms of how you get there, but you start to develop these habits in terms of what level of consciousness you like to stay at. And a lot of that has to do with potentials and possibilities in the social climates in which these things happen. We fall into these particular kind of patterns and we develop potentialities to raise our awareness up to particular places, and we can turn short-term states into long-term structures by inhabiting those spaces and staying in them for longer and longer amounts of time. But that takes practice. It's something that we kind of have to go through those different stages every day almost, I would say, and we're in flux every day. Actually, this is kind of what a lot of the ideas behind some of my paintings are about, are these like cells in flux. We've got like a red core and then some blue around it with like a bunch of purple and then some green. There's other ones too. I've done different color fluxes, but I've noticed like in certain situations I'll be hanging out with different people or like a group of people, you know. And one time we were playing disc golf with like 5 dudes. Different people, different abilities in terms of the level of conversation and what they want to talk about, their values and things like that. And I was thinking about it in terms of the conversations at each hole. You know, this hole seemed to be some kind of a very rational orange kind of a hole where we talked about this and this. This one seemed to be very high-minded over here. And this, you know, this one was just totally base. It was all talk about like hotness and ass and titties or whatever it, you know, dudes talk about. But, you know, being able to roll with that and like move into those spaces and occupy them authentically and morally. That's what a lot of it's about. So another thing I want to clear up before I get off of this is that when you're communicating with people at these different stages, there's a distinction to be made between translation and transformation. And this is something that I think skillful communicators often keep in mind. To an extent, you're talking to people where they are, and you can't necessarily expect them to be able to do more than that. At least not right now. Not without building up those potentials and being able to take their consciousness higher. So, to an extent, you might test it a little bit, test the ground, see if they're able to take it a little bit higher, figure out where the boundaries are. But most people, they're either new to a stage, just getting into it, have a lot to learn there. They've been stagnant in that stage for their whole life and they're probably never going to move, not too much higher at least. And then there are other people who have been in the stage, they've learned its lessons, and they're having all kinds of conflict and they're ready for some kind of transformation into the next stage. So for that one, we would use the transformation kind of language. We'd be pushing them and challenging them a little bit. Whereas for the other two, the ones that are new to that stage and the ones who have been there for a long time and are really comfortable and are probably not going anywhere, for them, we try more translation. We try to speak their language, still challenging them a little bit, but we're not trying to take away the way that they talk about it. We're not trying to take away, we're trying to work with them where they are and be like, okay, so you're a Christian. Well, that's cool. But I'm sure you see that it's important to be a good steward of the environment because these are the systems that support us and God created this beautiful world for us to live in and we should appreciate that. And through appreciating that, we can show that we appreciate Him. I think that's beautiful and important. And if you can get a Christian to think about that like that, then they're going to be better Christians. And maybe that's the best we can really hope for right now. That's hopefully some kind of a good understanding of what's going on there. I hope that's helpful. And have a good one. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you will check out some of my other intro to integral videos. I hope you'll like and subscribe to my channel. And I hope you have a great day.